And he was joined by Justice Samuel Alito. He was joined by all three Trump justices, Justice Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett, each of whom concurred separately. We can get into that as well. And also joined by the three liberal Democratic appointees, Justices Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson. Now, those three also each wrote to say, no, we still don't agree with Bruen. We still don't agree with this history and tradition test. We still don't even agree, perhaps even with the Second Amendment cases that came before it that declared an individual right to keep and bear arms for self-defense that came in the Heller case in 2008. Nor did we perhaps even agree with the McDonald case that came in 2010, which extended that to the states. But we're going to focus on Bruen here and say we still don't agree with it. But as we're applying the history and tradition test in this current case, we apply it correctly and more plastically, more pliably than how the Bruen majority seemed to have dictated it to the lower courts.
Now, Mike, one of the things that you've been very focused on at court accountability is the timing of these cases, how you will get a decision like we had last week in Garland versus Cargill, which basically says bump stocks are not machine guns. And so bump stocks are permitted, which was, by all accounts, I thought, an outrageous decision. That was authored by Justice Clarence Thomas. So you have a proliferation of bump stocks. Okay. They know that the Supreme Court knows, the right-wing Supreme Court knows there's going to be this public reaction to that. Mm-hmm. And then, though, they try to tone it down by taking another fairly extreme ruling from the Fifth Circuit involving a domestic violence statute and say, you know what, domestic, but we're not going to give the guns to people who have domestic violence restraining orders, right? Like, we're cool. We're not that extreme after making an extreme decision. So that's one of the things you focus on, right, at the Court Accountability Project is the timing of these things are not by accident.
No, none of this is by accident. The Supreme Court can design its own docket, pick and chooses the cases it wants to take up to set an agenda. And this term is very much about the Roberts Court, led by Chief Justice John Roberts, trying to wrest control from the justices who seem to run away with the court, the other term, the Dobbs term and the Bruen term, and say, no, we want to get some headlines declaring that we are, after all, not so bad. We are pretty moderate. We're not so anti-democratic. We're not trying to seize the entire control of the federal government under our own power. So you'll see that across all sorts of issue areas this term. As you mentioned, with the bump stock case, the court did say that the bump stock ban put forward by the Trump administration was beyond the federal government's power to regulate. And in this case, the Supreme Court said, but the Second Amendment does not forbid the government from disarming someone under protective order for domestic violence. It's a win-one, lose-one situation that they're going to be doing across pretty much every issue area that comes before the court this term. And they've already begun doing that. It's very much an image management thing, but it's also some cases come to them that they just have to take, whether there's a split in the circuits or a lower court like the Fifth Circuit struck down a federal regulation or an act of Congress or an executive order. So the story of this term is very much clean up on aisle Fifth Circuit, across a whole array of issues. You saw it with the abortion pill case. You're seeing it with the Rahimi case. But also, it's to design a docket to ensure that the big swings they take for their Republican co-partisans and for the right-wing legal movement over the course of several decades is counterbalancing the headlines by pulling back the excesses and the bad optics that are coming out of the courts that are full-on YOLO MAGA courts below.